Imagine standing before a mirror each morning, reciting cheerful affirmations, whispering promises of endless joy, wearing a smile so perfect it almost feels carved in porcelain. You tell yourself everything is fine, that you are grateful, that no storm can touch your heart. Yet deep inside, a quiet voice trembles, a voice you've been told to silence, because sadness isn't allowed here. You call it strength, but in truth, it is a quiet kind of fear. This, my friend, is the hidden danger of toxic positivity, a prison built from good intentions, locked with the key of denial. For every human heart needs more than sunlight, it also needs the rain. We live in a world that has mistaken cheerfulness for courage. We have been taught to mask pain, to wrap grief in glitter, and to label sorrow as weakness. Yet true growth, the kind Earl Nightingale spoke of, does not come from painting smiles over our wounds. It comes from understanding them, tending to them, and learning their lessons. A rose does not bloom by pretending winter does not exist. It blooms by surviving it. In our pursuit of happiness, many of us have forgotten that authenticity, not artificial optimism, is the foundation of a fulfilled life. Consider the mind as a fertile field. What we plant in it, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, becomes our harvest. If we sow only forced cheer, denying the darker truths, we grow not joy, but shallowness. Earl Nightingale once said, "We become what we think about." Yet what if what we think about is half the truth? What if we refuse to think about the sorrow, the fear, the anger, those vital teachers of the soul? Then we become lopsided beings, forever chasing the sun, but never learning to walk through shadow. True growth requires honesty. It is not born from pretending that pain is peace or that struggle is failure. The successful individual, the truly awakened soul, is not one who never feels sorrow, but one who meets it with open eyes and steady heart. When you accept your sadness, you do not surrender to it, you transform it. Every challenge carries within it the seed of equal or greater benefit. But that seed cannot be found if you refuse to look at the soil. Denying pain is not mastery, it is avoidance. Mastery is meeting your reflection, every part of it, and saying, "You are welcome here." Many people chase positivity the way a child chases bubbles. Beautiful, weightless, fleeting. They mistake surface calm for inner peace. But true serenity is not built upon denial. It is the calm that comes after the storm has passed through you. A positive mind is not a smiling mask. It is a mind that has learned to see both the joy and the sorrow and remains steady in their presence. Growth, like nature, is cyclical. Every blossom must fall. To reject half of life is to reject the fullness of living. And so, let us not be merchants of false sunshine. Let us be gardeners of truth. Let us tend to both the light and the dark within us, knowing that both are necessary for growth. When we stop forcing joy and begin embracing honesty, we discover a deeper kind of happiness, one rooted in wisdom, watered by understanding, and grown under skies both bright and gray. For the truth on growth is not that we must always smile, but that we must always see. There comes a moment in every person's life when the mirror becomes more than a reflection of the face. It becomes a reflection of the truth. You stand before it, rehearsing the lines you've been told will bring you strength. "I'm fine. Everything happens for a reason. Just stay positive." You lift your chin, smooth your expression, and tighten the corners of your smile like armor. You repeat the words until they almost sound real, but somewhere behind the glass, a part of you stirs, a quiet whisper that says, "This isn't how healing works." Yet you hush it, fearing that if you let it speak, the illusion will crumble. You've been taught that happiness is a performance, that courage is a grin, that to admit pain is to confess defeat. And so, you paint light over your darkness, mistaking denial for discipline, silence for strength. But life is not built on pretending. Life is built on truth, and truth, by its very nature, includes the storm as much as the sunshine. The danger of toxic positivity lies not in its intent, but in its ignorance. It tells you to build a palace of optimism on foundations made of air. It promises comfort but delivers fragility. Because when the winds of adversity blow, and they will, the walls of false cheer collapse, leaving you stranded in the rubble of emotions you never allowed yourself to feel. You see, the mind, like the soil, demands honesty. It cannot nurture what you refuse to plant. And when you bury pain beneath platitudes, you do not erase it, you let it fester. True strength is not the absence of sadness. It is the courage to face it, to name it, and to walk with it until it transforms. A river does not flow because it avoids obstacles. It flows because it moves through them. Yet somewhere along the way, society has convinced us that only the smiling are strong, only the unshaken are wise, only the unbothered are whole. We've confused repression with resilience. We've mistaken a straight face for a steadfast soul. But look closer, and you'll see the cost. You'll see people smiling with their lips while their eyes grow dim. You'll see workers praising gratitude while burning silently under the weight of exhaustion. You'll see friends offering empty encouragements. Stay positive. Don't cry, it could be worse. Because they fear what might surface if they dared to say, I understand, this hurts. We are living in an age where positivity has become a currency traded in likes, shares, and slogans. Everywhere you turn, you are told to manifest joy, to think good thoughts, to eliminate negativity from your vocabulary. But life does not respond to censorship. Growth demands exposure, not avoidance. The seed that fears the dark will never sprout. The tree that denies the wind will never strengthen its roots. Likewise, the individual who hides from their sorrow will never discover their depth. The purpose of emotion is not to decorate the surface of our days, but to sculpt the landscape of our understanding. Pain, disappointment, loss. These are not enemies of progress, they are the architects of wisdom. Every challenge carries a lesson hidden within its shadow. Yet, when we refuse to look into that shadow, we rob ourselves of the very growth we claim to seek. The person who insists on perpetual positivity becomes like a traveler walking in circles, insisting the horizon is near because it feels good to believe it. But real progress begins when we pause, admit our direction is wrong, and choose a truer path, even if that path leads first through the valley. For no mountain was ever climbed by pretending it wasn't there. And so, when you stand before that mirror again, dare to speak honestly. Tell yourself not only what is hopeful, but what is human. Say, today I am hurting, but I am here. Say, this pain is not my enemy, it is my teacher. Say, I do not need to smile to prove my strength, I need only to face the truth. Because the essence of growth is not found in the denial of hardship, but in the transformation that hardship awakens within you. When you stop running from discomfort, you begin to walk toward wisdom. When you stop silencing your sorrow, you start to hear the lessons it carries. Positivity is a beautiful servant but a terrible master. Used wisely, it inspires hope. Used blindly, it breeds disconnection. The task before you is not to eliminate your shadows, but to understand them. For it is only in embracing the full spectrum of experience, the joy and the grief, the triumph and the trial, that you become whole. Life was never meant to be a performance of endless smiles, it was meant to be a journey of authentic becoming. And that journey begins not with pretending everything is fine, but with the quiet, revolutionary act of telling yourself the truth. The world we live in has grown obsessed with happiness. It sells it, packages it, markets it in books and slogans, and hangs it on walls in cursive letters. Everywhere you turn, you are told to choose joy, to look on the bright side, to count your blessings. Yet behind the polished words and smiling faces lies a quiet struggle. Many are suffering in silence, trapped beneath the weight of their own expectations to feel good all the time. They fear that admitting pain will make them appear weak, ungrateful, or broken. They've been taught that the path to success is paved only with laughter, that sorrow is a detour rather than a teacher. But the truth is far more complex and far more freeing. The human experience was never meant to be one-dimensional. Growth is not found in constant sunshine. It is born in the balance of light and shadow, in the willingness to see things as they are, not merely as we wish them to be. There is a subtle danger in this cultural obsession with positivity. It tells us that struggle is a sign of failure. It whispers that we should always be composed, calm, unbothered. It trains us to suppress our emotions until they harden into numbness. Yet the mind, like the body, is not designed to carry unspoken burdens forever. Suppression may feel like control, but it is only delay. Sooner or later, what is hidden will demand to be heard. Just as a wound ignored will fester, emotions denied will seek expression, often in ways we least expect. Anxiety, burnout, emptiness. These are not flaws of character. They are the consequences of pretending too long. The greatest misconception about strength is that it means never bending. But the oak that never sways will break in the storm, while the reed that yields will rise again when the wind has passed. Resilience is not about denial. It is about adaptability. It is the courage to let truth move through you, rather than pretending it does not exist. Every emotion you feel, whether joy or grief, has a purpose. Each one carries information about what matters to you, what needs attention, what requires change. When you deny anger, you may overlook injustice. When you dismiss sadness, you may ignore loss. When you mask fear, you may miss the lesson in caution. The full spectrum of emotion is not a flaw. It is a compass. Without it, you drift. To grow, you must allow yourself to feel. Feel fully, but not forever. Pain is not a destination, but a messenger. When it knocks, do not slam the door. Invite it in, ask what it came to teach you, and then let it leave when its lesson is complete. Those who mistake positivity for growth will spend their lives painting over cracks rather than repairing the foundation. Real progress begins when you allow yourself to acknowledge the fracture. Only then can you strengthen what lies beneath. So many people confuse optimism with blindness. They think that to be positive is to refuse to see the problem. But genuine optimism is not denial. It is faith informed by truth. It says, yes, this is difficult, and I believe I can endure it. It does not erase the darkness, it lights a candle within it. To ignore difficulty is to be defeated by it. To face it is to be transformed. The individual who accepts reality as it is and still chooses to act with hope holds a power that no storm can break. It is easy to smile when life is generous. The test of your character comes when life withdraws its comfort, when the days grow heavy, when progress slows to a crawl. In those moments, forced positivity will shatter, but authenticity will endure. If you allow yourself to grieve, you create space for healing. If you allow yourself to question, you make room for understanding. Growth is not found in pretending to be unshaken. It is found in learning how to rebuild when shaken. There is nothing noble about denying your humanity. There is nothing wise about rejecting your pain. The soul grows not through avoidance, but through awareness. It learns to see joy and sorrow as partners, not opposites. One gives meaning to the other. Without darkness, light is unnoticed. Without loss, love is unmeasured. Without struggle, victory is hollow. To live fully is to accept all of it. To walk into each season knowing that both the bloom and the barren field are necessary for the harvest of wisdom. So let the world chase its empty smiles. You instead choose truth. Let your joy be honest, your sadness sincere, your courage quiet but unwavering. In that honesty lies your power, and in that power, your growth. The mind is not an empty vessel waiting to be filled. It is a living garden, rich with the potential to grow whatever seed we dare to plant. Each thought we entertain is a seed cast into the soil of our consciousness. Every belief, every quiet whisper of conviction is a root seeking nourishment. Yet many of us, in our haste to feel good, scatter seeds without care. We plant smiles over sorrow, affirmations over confusion, and then wonder why our harvest feels hollow. The truth is simple yet often ignored. What you plant must match what you wish to grow. If you plant false cheer where truth should stand, you will reap confusion instead of clarity. Too many treat the mind as though it can be fooled, as though the repetition of empty positivity can substitute for genuine understanding. They recite phrases of abundance while fearing lack, chant about peace while burying unrest, speak of love while avoiding vulnerability. The mind does not respond to words alone, it responds to authenticity. When you attempt to sow joy without acknowledging sorrow, you break the natural order of growth. The soil of the mind needs contrast, light and dark, to nurture real wisdom. Without acknowledging pain, your positivity is a fragile crop, easily scorched by the first heat of adversity. Consider the person who insists that everything is wonderful, even as they crumble within. They smile at every challenge, quote motivational slogans at every setback, and hide their uncertainty behind a curtain of relentless cheer. Outwardly, they appear strong. Inwardly, their roots are shallow. The first storm of doubt, the first gust of disappointment, uproots their fragile optimism. Because true confidence is not built from denial, it is built from understanding. To know joy, you must first have faced despair and chosen hope anyway. To know peace, you must have met chaos and decided not to run. Thoughts are builders. They shape not only the direction of your life, but also the structure of your character. If your mind is filled only with half-truths, selective positivity, selective awareness, then the architecture of your being is unstable. It is like constructing a tower on air. You may climb for a while, but when weight comes, it collapses. The universe rewards integrity, and integrity begins in thought. A thought divorced from reality loses its creative power. A belief rooted in denial cannot bring forth wholeness. To cultivate a fertile mind, you must dare to face every corner of it. When grief arises, study it. When anger burns, ask what it protects. When fear whispers, listen to what it warns you about. Each feeling is a signpost pointing toward an unexamined truth. To turn away from them in the name of positivity is to miss the very lessons that would strengthen you. Growth demands curiosity, not censorship. You cannot harvest courage from seeds of avoidance. The law of the harvest has no favorites. It does not bend to good intentions or bright smiles. It delivers exactly what you sow. If you fill your mind with forced joy, you will harvest dissonance, a sense that something is missing. But if you plant sincerity, if you allow yourself to experience life fully, the laughter and the lament, you will reap depth, understanding, and wisdom. The mind responds to honesty. It expands when you tell it the truth, even when that truth stings. Do not fear the weeds of darker thought. They too serve a purpose. A gardener who pretends weeds do not exist will lose the crop. A wise one studies them, learns their roots, and clears them with patience. So it is with the mind. Confronting discomfort is not negativity, it is stewardship. You are not here to pretend your field is perfect. You are here to tend it faithfully. Every seed of thought grows into a habit, and every habit becomes a destiny. So choose carefully. Do not confuse constant brightness with healthy growth. A plant raised in unbroken sunlight withers. It needs the rhythm of day and night, of warmth and cool, of rest and renewal. Your mind, too, requires balance. Let it see the fullness of truth, and it will reward you with resilience. Let it live only in illusion, and it will falter at the first shadow. You are both the sower and the soil, both the gardener and the garden. If you would harvest peace, plant honesty. If you would reap joy, water it with understanding. And when the rains of hardship come, and they will, stand firm, knowing that every storm nourishes the roots of wisdom growing within you. Every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, contains a series of crossroads where truth calls softly, asking to be faced. These are the moments when a person must decide whether to keep wearing the mask of false strength or to remove it and meet themselves honestly. It is tempting to hide behind smiles, to drown discomfort in noise, to convince oneself that feeling nothing is the same as being strong. Yet every time truth is buried, growth is delayed. Every denial is a pause in the great unfolding of the soul. Real development, real maturity, begins the moment you stop negotiating with reality and begin to look at life as it is. Both its blessings and its burdens, its joys and its griefs, its triumphs and its trials. The world rewards appearances. It praises composure, applauds calm, and mistakes silence for peace. But peace is not the absence of pain. It is the understanding of it. Strength is not a stiff upper lip. It is the courage to acknowledge fear without surrendering to it. Growth is not the avoidance of difficulty. It is the decision to learn from it. You cannot build wisdom on pretense. To deny struggle is to reject the very teacher sent to refine you. When you refuse to feel the full weight of your experiences, you also refuse the full value they bring. The person who shuts their heart to sorrow shuts it also to compassion. The one who refuses to face failure blinds themselves to humility. It takes courage to look inward and admit, I am hurting. It takes faith to say, I do not understand, but I am willing to learn. The greatest victories are often quiet, unseen by the world. The moment you choose honesty over image, humility over pride, truth over comfort, that single act of recognition becomes the seed of transformation. You begin to see that emotions are not enemies to be conquered, but messengers to be heard. Pain is not a punishment, it is information. It tells you something has been lost. Something must be healed, something needs your attention. When you meet pain with awareness rather than resistance, you turn it from a burden into a guide. Those who chase perfection often find only exhaustion. They spend their energy polishing the surface, keeping up appearances, editing their humanity into something marketable. Yet inside there is a growing emptiness, a quiet ache that no affirmation can soothe. They tell themselves they are strong because they never cry, disciplined because they never falter, wise because they never doubt. But unexpressed sorrow does not vanish, it calcifies. Hidden anger becomes cynicism. Denied grief becomes numbness. And when life inevitably presses harder, the cracks widen, revealing what was never healed. True strength is not the absence of cracks. It is the light that shines through them. There is great dignity in authenticity. To stand before yourself and say, "This is who I am, in all my complexity, with my courage and my confusion, my joy and my sorrow," is the beginning of liberation. The person who accepts themselves completely becomes unshakable, for nothing within them is forbidden. They do not fear their sadness, they explore it. They do not hide their frustration, they understand its root. They do not bury their doubt, they use it to seek deeper clarity. When you allow all parts of yourself to exist in harmony, you become whole. And from wholeness flows confidence. Not the brittle confidence of pretending, but the steady assurance of truth. Every challenge in life is an invitation to awaken. Struggle is not a curse, it is a curriculum. You cannot learn patience without delay, compassion without loss, resilience without trial. The world's most beautiful landscapes are carved by resistance, rivers shaping stone, storms feeding forests, pressure forming diamonds. The same law applies to the human spirit. What you resist in fear, you prolong. What you accept in understanding, you transform. To deny the presence of hardship is to deny the mechanism of growth. When you choose to face life as it is, without distortion or disguise, you reclaim your power. You begin to act rather than react. You start to respond to pain with purpose, not panic. Every experience, no matter how difficult, becomes material for wisdom. You learn to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" In that simple shift, you rise from victimhood to mastery. You stop seeing obstacles as proof of misfortune and begin to see them as invitations to become more. Growth does not demand that you be unfeeling. It asks that you be unafraid of feeling. It asks that you look at your reflection, not the polished mask, but the raw truth beneath, and greet it with compassion. It is in that honest gaze, unflinching and unguarded, that transformation begins. There is a great misunderstanding in the way people speak about happiness. Many have come to believe that joy is a performance, that peace is a product of perfection, and that optimism means ignoring the pain that life inevitably brings. They chase smiles like trophies, thinking that if they can only maintain them long enough, sorrow will forget their name. But happiness is not found in denial, it is found in depth. It is not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of understanding. To be truly positive is not to shut your eyes to reality, but to open them wide enough to see the full picture. The sorrow and the sweetness intertwined. When the storms of life arrive, as they always do, forced cheer crumbles like paper in the rain. It offers no shelter, no wisdom, no strength. The individual who has trained themselves only to smile has forgotten how to endure. Yet those who have walked through the valley, who have listened to their own silence and dared to name their pain, stand unshaken. They know that hardship is not a verdict, it is a teacher. They do not flee from darkness, they walk through it with lanterns of understanding. And because they have faced their sorrow, they know how to tend to joy when it comes. Their happiness is not a disguise, it is a reflection of truth. To be alive is to experience contrast. The sky knows both storm and sun, the sea knows both calm and current. Why then should a human heart seek only one half of life's equation? Every great story, every noble achievement is shaped by struggle. Joy without struggle is shallow. It is the laughter of one who has never cried, the peace of one who has never wrestled with doubt. It shines for a moment but fades at the first sign of challenge. Real happiness is born from understanding the necessity of both pleasure and pain, and learning to let each season serve its purpose. A person who refuses sorrow becomes fragile, for they deny half their strength. Imagine a musician who plays only high notes or an artist who paints only in white. Their work may seem bright, but it lacks dimension. In the same way, a life stripped of sorrow lacks richness. The ability to feel deeply, whether joy or grief, is not a weakness, it is a sign of being fully human. The more deeply you allow yourself to feel, the more deeply you can live. Sorrow stretches the heart so that joy may fill it more completely. There is wisdom in accepting the rhythm of emotion. When sadness comes, welcome it as a guest who carries a message. Ask it what it needs to show you. Perhaps it comes to remind you of love lost or effort unacknowledged, of change that must be made or forgiveness that must be given. Each feeling, if met with awareness, refines the soul. It shapes patience, compassion, and empathy, qualities that cannot be forged in constant comfort. Those who try to leapfrog over sorrow in search of perpetual joy rob themselves of this refinement. They grow older, perhaps, but not wiser. To practice true positivity is to hold both hope and honesty in the same hand. It is to say, this is difficult, and I will rise through it. It is to admit, I am hurting, but I have not lost faith. Such words are not defeat, they are declarations of balance. They honor the full truth of being alive. A mind that allows both realities, pain and potential, becomes resilient. It bends with the wind, but it does not break. Its optimism is not blind, it is built upon understanding. When you permit yourself to see life as it is, without dressing it in forced smiles, you discover a deeper form of peace, one that does not depend on circumstances. You realize that joy is not something you chase, it is something that grows when the soil of the soul has been tilled by every season. It sprouts not from pretending everything is fine, but from knowing that even when it isn't, you are still becoming. Each trial endured adds a new ring of strength, as trees mark their growth in circles of resilience. Let the world cling to shallow comfort if it must. You instead cultivate depth. Speak truth even when it trembles. Allow tears when they come. There is no shame in feeling. There is only wisdom in learning from what is felt. The sunlight of joy and the rain of sorrow are both necessary to grow the garden of the spirit. When you embrace both, life ceases to be a performance and becomes a practice, an unfolding journey toward wholeness, where every emotion, every experience, every shadow plays its rightful part in shaping the beauty of your becoming. There is a quiet strength in the person who chooses truth over comfort, who no longer fears the shadows within, but walks among them as a friend walks beside another. Such a person has learned that the goal of life is not endless brightness, but wholeness. Wholeness is not born from denial, it is born from acceptance. It is the moment you stop dividing your experience into what is allowed and what is forbidden, what is pleasant and what is shameful. You begin to see that every part of your journey, the laughter that lights your eyes and the tears that carve your cheeks, has worked together to shape the person standing here today. Too often we are told to filter ourselves, to keep only the emotions that make others comfortable, to display only the parts of our story that look like victory. But life is not a stage for performance, it is a classroom for understanding. The lessons that matter most seldom arrive dressed in celebration. They come disguised as disappointment, loss, uncertainty, and change. These are not interruptions in our journey, they are the journey itself. Each challenge calls you closer to awareness, closer to humility, closer to truth. To deny them is to deny the very instruments of your growth. The soil of the soul does not discriminate, it nourishes every seed we plant. If we plant avoidance, we harvest confusion. If we plant honesty, we reap wisdom. Growth requires patience with imperfection. It requires the willingness to see ourselves not as flawless beings, but as evolving ones. The person who strives for constant positivity is like a gardener who rips out every weed before learning its name. But the wise gardener pauses, studies, and discovers that some weeds are wild herbs with healing in their leaves. In the same way, our darker emotions, when understood, often contain the medicine our spirit needs. There is nothing noble in rejecting your own depth. To live fully is to embrace the complete spectrum of experience. Light and darkness are not enemies, they are partners in the dance of becoming. The dawn does not fight the night, it emerges from it. Likewise, your joy is most radiant after it has risen from sorrow. The heart that has wept knows how to rejoice with sincerity. The mind that has wrestled with confusion knows how to treasure clarity. The soul that has endured loss knows how to value love. Every difficulty you face refines you, chiseling away illusion until only truth remains. When you begin to accept both the shadow and the sun, you stop waging war with yourself. The energy once spent on pretending is freed for purpose. You become gentle with your own humanity, and in that gentleness you find strength. The individual who is at peace with their own depths cannot be shaken by the surface tremors of circumstance. They have learned that calm is not the absence of storms, but the steadiness to navigate them. They have discovered that joy is not fragile, because it is not built on pretense. It is built on understanding. There will always be voices urging you to stay positive, to move on, to let it go. But sometimes what the soul needs is not dismissal, but dialogue. It needs space to speak its truth, to name its sorrow, to honor its lessons. Listening to that inner voice is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the act of turning inward and saying, "All of me belongs." That simple recognition is the doorway to wholeness. For when you stop exiling parts of yourself, you become unified. A unified self is a powerful self, for it no longer wastes energy on hiding. Growth is not about being untouched by life. It is about being transformed by it. The seasons will continue to change. The winters of loss, the springs of renewal, the summers of abundance, the autumns of release. Each has its purpose. To reject one is to break the rhythm of your becoming. You are meant to evolve through all of them, gathering wisdom as leaves gather sunlight. Every emotion, every challenge, every joy is a teacher disguised as experience. When you learn to thank them all, you step into mastery. Let your heart be wide enough to hold both the pain and the promise. Let your mind be still enough to see meaning even in struggle. Let your spirit be brave enough to stand bare before truth. For it is not perfection that defines a life well lived, but authenticity. And authenticity is born from embracing all that you are: light, shadow, joy, sorrow, and everything in between. When you live in that awareness, you are no longer chasing happiness, you are embodying wisdom. So, what then is the true measure of growth? It is not how brightly we smile, nor how skillfully we hide our sorrow. It is how deeply we are willing to live. How bravely we welcome each emotion, each lesson, each season of the soul. Life was never meant to be a stage for unbroken sunshine. It was designed as a journey through contrast, through light and shadow, gain and loss, laughter and lament, for only in contrast can the heart learn harmony. The hidden danger of toxic positivity lies in this forgetting that we grow not by escaping our pain, but by walking with it, learning from it, and allowing it to refine us. There is a greater beauty in truth than in forced joy. The person who embraces both strength and softness, who admits their doubts yet moves forward in faith, who feels deeply and still chooses hope, that person has discovered the quiet power of authenticity. They no longer chase perfection, they pursue understanding. They no longer silence their sadness, they listen to its wisdom. They no longer pretend the storm does not exist, they learn to sail through it. And as they do, something miraculous unfolds. Their peace deepens, their vision clears, their life gains meaning. They begin to see that every tear watered the roots of their resilience, every trial shaped the edges of their character, every darkness taught them how to recognize light. They have learned that happiness is not a constant state, but a companion that walks beside truth. So let us not build our lives on the brittle glass of constant cheer, but upon the solid ground of honesty. Let us strive not to appear unshaken, but to become unafraid of shaking. Let us grow not toward endless brightness, but toward fullness, a life wide enough for joy and sorrow alike. For when we live with that depth, every experience becomes sacred, every emotion becomes teacher, and every step, even the painful ones, becomes part of the path toward wisdom, wholeness, and genuine peace.